Eventually, the DM got involved and started pressuring me to seduce it. It was no longer fun for me because I did not want my character to do something like this, but eventually my DM literally just says to do it without even asking me, and then says I now have dragon herpes, and died, and have to make a new character even though I never agreed to this. Probably gonna leave this group. I mean, I don't even have anything to say, that's just weird. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever and whenever you are. I am Rune from Rune'sGuild, and this is another episode of RPG Horror Stories. Before we get into any longer of an introduction, let's go ahead and roll some posts. I run a homebrew campaign in my own massive homebrew world. The players all get along and enjoy how much work I put into making maps and 3D tokens for, like, everything. Well, one of our players, Adam, one day decides his current character, a Hexblade Kalishtar named Atlas, is going to rob a bank in the capital city. The party has to beg him for literally 2 days of Discord messages to not do this, as the party had recently met the Queen and would be instantly recognizable and lose any good reputation they had. He agrees reluctantly, but when they get to the upscale tavern they were staying at, he notices a table of nobles and overhears one discuss his business. Realizing this man is rich, he tells me that he is going to rob this nobleman and open a casino and bank in the town the party calls home. Me being the person who listens to almost all of these stories on YouTube through Crispy, Crit Crab, Drake, etc., I was like, hey, I'm not going to railroad you into not doing something you want to try, but it will be hard. So, we have a private text session where he goes and climbs up on top of a shop's roof. The shop was located about a football field away from the noble's mansion. He wants to use this to scout it out and glean information from it. During his second night of scouting, he is spotted by both some city guards and some thieves guild members protecting this noble that I never mentioned to the party. Obviously, the guards are the ones who yell out at him and detain him. They ask him what the heck he's doing up there and that he will be charged with trespassing. Now, as we're all Americans, I assumed he knew that you cannot just climb onto buildings you don't own without trespassing. I mean, people get arrested on the news fairly commonly for doing this exactly on skyscrapers. So, as he's arguing with me saying that he shouldn't be arrested since he did nothing wrong, he tried to cast a spell and escape. Now, I had planned for this and put anti-magic cuffs on him, because think of how many times someone being arrested might just try to misty step away or whatever. This adds on another charge and earns him a week in prison. Eventually, he does get out, and the party scolds him for being a dumbass and risking their group's reputation with the Queen. They go on a quest afterward in the city sewers, and this guy, who is not tanky or frontline at all, decides, screw the barbarian, I'm gonna lead this. Giant alligator croc takes him to 4 HP, he had 38 max. After finishing it off and continuing on, still trying to lead the charge at 4 HP, nobody healed him and he never drank a potion. Smart move. They get to a chest, a giant mimic. Now the player IRL knew about them and asked to make a perception roll, which I allowed. It was pretty low and I said, it looks like a pretty standard chest. He goes to open it and instantly loses his 4 HP and drops unconscious. And then, as that mimic had a multi-attack, he lost 2 death saves right then and there. Oh my god. Well, nobody healed him, and so when it came to his turn, he tried to roll IRL with his lucky dice. And we said we would need to watch through Discord call's camera. He said, okay, never mind, and rolled on D&D Beyond and got a 4. Well, as you all watch Atlas tries to lead the charge, he gets eaten by a mimic who swallows him upon his death and burps. The rest of the party decimates the mimic because they were well prepared for the CR3 and that giant mimic was. He starts a new character. This one lasts no time at all, so I'll spare you the details, but it was a blood hunter. Well, after he gets integrated into the party, his lawful good detective decides he's going to become a gunslinger. Okay, I can sell a pistol or maybe Matt Mercer's guns, no biggie. Well, he decides that I have to make him a gun that doesn't follow the rules as written. This vial of poison can be used to coat something 3 times, but that he should have a gun that he can get like high teens amounts of charges as the potion is literally integrated into the gun, coating each bullet on exit. I tried negotiating and saying, well, how about it can do that, but only 3 times per vial as the rules stated. No. Okay, well then he sets his sights on building a nuke. So, to suppose nuke the capital city where this entire story took place. And yet there wasn't an artificer or even yet he wasn't an artificer or even had tinkerer's tools. So I'm just sitting here like, no, sorry, that makes no sense, and I'm not going to let you nuke my city where my PC from another game lives as an NPC. Eventually I asked him in his DMs, hey, are you just trolling or what? I provided my reasons for asking an example of things that have happened, and he just left the campaign instantly after. No discussion, no explanation. Frankly, I was fine with it because it made me start hating playing, but at the same time, he said he really enjoyed my games, so I'm not sure why he couldn't have just toned it down and acted a little better. I'm pretty sure that if he hadn't left the story then, many more events would have probably happened. I mean, I was like confused at first, like I get like kind of like, I don't know, maybe like I understand the frustration maybe that the player had. And like I was like confused a little while, like, you know, okay, well, you know, sometimes I guess what I'm trying to say is he wanted to build a nuke because he couldn't have a gun that shot infinite poison. And sometimes I question people's sanity. And that's really all I have to say on this one. So next post, I guess. I was running a wild mount campaign, which fell apart because of one person and their inability to be able to earn an ability that they themselves literally asked me to make them earn. For simplicity, we're going to call this problem person as the Barbarian. The story begins about 4 months ago, so it had been a bit since I was last lucky enough to run a game of my own. With the Explorer's Guide to Wild Mount just releasing and always wanted to run an Exandria-based Critical Role style game, I thought now would be the time to do so. I invited several people who were looking for a game, some of whom had been fellow players in the game I was a player in, and the characters people were coming up with made me so excited to see the story that would unfold from these characters. Soon though, I received a Discord message from Barbarian asking if there was still an empty spot left for them in the campaign. At this time, Barbarian was my DM in the campaign I was a player in, and I still wanted to impress Barbarian as I hadn't become jaded about their game and who they were as a person, so I eagerly accepted them. For their character, Barbarian made an Aasimar, but they wanted to do a sort of homebrewed Aasimar that was unable to fly but still had their wings, and they wanted a character moment to learn how to use their wings to fly all of the time like an Aarakocra. Barbarian showed me the homebrewed subrace, and I agreed to it for being fair and balanced, and I liked that it reminded me sort of Yasha from Critical Role. So they made a story of a female Aasimar barbarian who was originally a warrior hobgoblin chief in the dynasty who was executed for a crime they didn't commit and was reborn into the body of an Aasimar, but with all of their original memories intact. The campaign started, and it became quickly apparent that the subclass, along with how Barbarian rolled their stats, was making the character underpowered, so I offered for them to reroll their stats, or just pick default so they didn't have a 6 for their wisdom score and a 9 for their charisma. That's bad luck. Fred said that it was fine and that they liked the challenge, and once they got some levels under the belt, the power of the character would grow exponentially. They did, however, want to know when they would get access to their flying ability. I said this should be something we do in-game, and your character will have to practice and have some ability checks to strengthen their wings so they can hold themselves aloft. They agreed and expressly consented to this idea. This is important for later. Over the next several sessions, and after they were around level 4, the Barbarian had rolled fairly poorly for the athletics checks to strengthen their wings. I felt bad and decided to still give them a small progress each time for them to unlock this ability, rather than none at all. But just as they hit level 5, something which would change the course of that group forever happened. In the second to last session, Barbarian couldn't make it for the game, but they asked that since they would be traveling that they spend what free time their character had to practice flying. I said sure, that they can make good progress on that day rather than rolling for the different checks, and they should be getting their wings soon. The group was headed to a town that was surrounded by a thick marsh and was told to the party in advance that would require them to be creative with how they got there, if they wanted to avoid the worst of the marsh would throw at them. Barbarian asked if they could fly up in the air to do a perception check of the surroundings, and since they had an aerial view, they could roll with advantage. I said, okay, make an athletics check, which I planned to be the moment they unlocked their ability, so long as they rolled above a 10. Before they even rolled, Barbarian asked if I could speak to them in private, where they yelled and shouted at me for holding them back from using their abilities, and that they were becoming increasingly frustrated with how they felt the rest of the party is becoming stronger while their character isn't. After they yelled and insulted me and called me inept and a bad DM, they left the call, and the rest of the players, seeing Fred leave, got a sense of the vibe had soured. And we all decided to call it a night. The next morning, I got an apology from Barbarian, who openly admitted that the way they spoke to me was uncalled for and unacceptable, and asked if they could leave the campaign as they felt it was for the best, so that I could continue the game without them bringing down the mood of the game. I said if that's what they want, that's fine. However, after this happened, since Barbarian was the DM of me and the other players in my game, I began to hemorrhage players until almost everyone was gone. So I decided to take this as a lesson learned and ask my players to answer a survey about the game and what their thoughts were so that I could use their feedback for the next game. Things were beginning to look better, and this was just a minor upset between me and the Barbarian. However, not wanting to waste time getting things prepared because I still wanted a DM, I began making a Reddit post to get new players in my campaign. And I also asked a friend of mine to let people know in a D&D server they were in that I was looking for players for a campaign. I didn't realize it at the time, but Barbarian was also in the server and thought I was going to start a new campaign before my original players could give their feedback for the campaign. Barbarian promptly asked to call me, wherein they attacked me as an uncaring and egotistical jerk. I tried to explain that I was just going to get people lined up to play and I would not DM a second before I got everyone's feedback. Fred promptly ignored me and kicked me from their new campaign they were starting after the last clown fiesta caused the end of the previous one. And now I have been ignored by the rest of these people in this friend group who I had a year-long friendship with, as they all had known this person before me and all of them took the side of their DM over me. So, the end of this story, unfortunately, does not have a happy ending. The good guy was turned into a pariah who lost an entire friend group because of their actions and manipulations of one DM. However, I hope I can write a different ending to the story by having you all read this story, and by extension see hundreds of people who will see this person for who they truly are, and I have some level of satisfaction for this. Thanks for reading. I was like on your side until the end where like I was the good guy. Because anybody who always says they're the good guy never tells the whole story. If you're sitting there and you say, I'm the good guy, and what they did was wrong, I have just such a big feeling that there is something else here that you did not tell us, because you're leaving it out to intentionally frame yourself like the good guy. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But based on what we're told here, apart from that last paragraph, OP didn't really do anything wrong. OP was just like, trying to play D&D, and then was like, hey, that's a cool RP thing for your character to not be able to fly yet, but you'll unlock it eventually. And then the guy got angry and rage quit and took all of his players. So, like, based on that, like, yeah, OP didn't really do anything wrong, but I promise you there's something else here that he probably did not include. On top of that, I think that was actually a really cool idea, really, for the SMR to not be able to fly right away, like as if they're like just discovering their wings, because like they said they were reincarnated. So I don't know, it's pretty cool. Though if your DM ever offers for you to reroll your stats, you should probably do that. I know for my games we do the 4d6 rolling method, and I allow my players to reroll whatever their like lowest total score is, just so they can have decent ones. So if they roll a 6, a 12, a 14, blah 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 blah, they can reroll one of the 6s, so they're not sitting there with like a minus 10 on anything for a modifier or whatever a 6 gets you. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about this one, and that'll probably be it for this video. I want to try a new format where I only read a few stories per video, if not just a single one, because I don't know if people might like one longer story over a bunch of different ones. I don't know, but if you have an opinion on this and you want to let me know in the comments below, go ahead. Just let me know what you prefer. On top of that, I mean, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, leave me a like, leave me a subscribe, a comment. If you can't think of anything you want to comment and you don't have any of your own horror stories, good job if you don't, by the way. Go ahead and just comment, let's nuke the city. Let's nuke the city. That's what it's gonna be today. So yeah, that's everything. Thanks. See you in the next video. Bye.